Hello there, adventure, and welcome to the Guildhall, your one-stop shop for all things anime and D&D related. It's always particularly nice when we come across an anime that shares a lot of flavor with a classic D&D campaign. 3 years ago, we got an isekai adventure in the form of the rising of the shield hero that did just that, but it has been a long 3 years waiting for the adventure to continue. The first season followed Naofumi, the summoned shield hero, and his companions as they prepared to fight off the impending waves, or massive invasions of otherworldly monsters. The hitch is that while he has been summoned along with 3 other quote-unquote heroes, he's quickly framed for a crime he did not commit and thus ostracized. The show deals with themes of injustice through the eyes of several of the main characters, and throws shade at a lot of shonen anime heroes and the idea that might always eventually equals right. It also makes a point to call out ecchi tropes as being tiresome and develops a cast of female characters that are believably dynamic and capable. It really was, especially for the first half of the season, one of the most compelling and interesting anime to come along for quite a while. The show originally premiered in 2019, and since then we have been waiting for a season 2. But the wait is now over, as the first episode of the second season just premiered on Crunchyroll, and today we're going to take a look. As a quick refresher, if you've forgotten where the show left off, Naofumi and his party have fought back yet another wave, and again his party once again took center stage. This time, however, rather than fighting skeletons and chimera, Naofumi ends up fighting some pretty gnarly sea monsters, but more importantly, 3 people claiming to be heroes in their own right from a world that is also on the brink of destruction caused by the waves. The main question I'm hoping that are answered, or we at least learn more about in Season 2, are as follows. First, will Raphthalia's prominence and development wane in the face of new characters and storylines being added? She was super central to Season 1, but will she go the way of so many other primary female supporting characters who become significantly less interesting or prominent after a very promising first season? Next, is there something more to the cursed powers within the shield, and will we learn a little bit more about what is motivating or pushing that dark power within the shield? Also, what can we expect from the party's newest member, Rashia, and will we see additional party members added as the season goes by? Also, at the end of Season 1, we met several opposing heroes, and my question is, if they are also fighting the waves, then why are they Naofumi's adversary? Why are they going after him, or at least angling to destroy this version of the world? And that leads me to believe that we may learn of a greater injustice, another level of injustice, to go along with the themes that we've been seeing in Season 1. Obviously, I don't think many of these questions will be answered in the first episode, but I hope we at least get a few seeds. After 3 years, though, I am hoping that the show comes out strong and gets us hooked once again. So let's take a look. He's already looking a little bit more friendly here. Okay, he's settling in. Life seems to be going pretty well. What? Who's this giant penguin? Oh, right. So this is kind of the old woman that we met in Season 1, who's there to train up the new people that have come to the village. And this is Keel here, right? And so we met Keel in Season 1. He's also, like Raphtalia, one of these demi-humans, and he hasn't kind of leveled up in the same way that Raphtalia has. She leveled up really, really quickly. They found him with several other of the demi-humans kind of locked up in Season 1 and being held as slaves. So it's interesting that even as this amount of time has gone by, he hasn't leveled up in the same way Raphtalia has. Okay, so this is Rashia, right? This is our newest party member that we met just at the end of Season 1. Oh, it seems like she's having a hard time, huh? I think she could be one of the more compelling arcs of this season, right? So you have Melty, Raphtalia, Philo, right? The women that have kind of made up the party so far. And one thing none of them have ever really been lacking is self-confidence, right? You have Raphtalia, who in the very beginning was going through some trauma that she had to overcome. But they even make a note of it in one of the early episodes. I think like episode 3, they mention the fact that she's become so self-confident and so self-assured. So that wasn't really an arc that we explored. Everybody was kind of at a place of self-assuredness as soon as we met them. So this new character could be an interesting way to see that type of development, a development where someone is joining a new environment, they're unsure of themselves, and how does this group encourage growth and encourage her to become something more than she is here in the beginning of season 2, episode 1. So I think that's going to be really interesting to watch. Oh, we got some kind of attack happening here. Okay. I mean, just looks like bats. Okay. Oh no, they're pretty big. They're pretty big. Okay, so we got Philo coming in here. Yeah. Okay, we got the whole crew coming in. All right. I mean, bats that can shoot lasers from their chest. Not your ordinary swarm of bats. For those of us who play D&D, that would be kind of a cool alteration to your normal swarm of bats, right? You have something like, I don't know, crystals or some kind of moss growing in a cave somewhere, and it's mutated these swarms of bats so that they have like these laser shots coming out of their chest. That'd be a fun one to throw at your party. I don't really think they'd expect that one to be coming at them. I really don't understand why she's wearing this penguin costume. We saw penguin costumes in one of the later episodes where they used them to like go diving, but I don't understand why she's wearing this penguin costume other than to like look cuter for a sight gag. So this is one of the abilities of the shield, right? Naofumi can drop anything into the shield, like any creature or whatever, and the shield assimilates those properties into it and can often like create new shields. I think one thing that is a limitation of anime, but is particularly kind of disappointing, is that he doesn't do more with all this. The visual shows us that he has, dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of shields, and this shield has all these different abilities. But in season 1, we really only ever saw like his air shield and rope shield, certainly the curse shield, and he often used them in kind of similar ways, and the characters would say, "Oh, I didn't expect you to use it like that," but it was pretty obvious how he was going to use it, or he always just a slight variation. So I think greater creativity in season 2 would be a really cool thing to see. Oh shit. Okay, so we got some new information. The countdown for the next wave has stopped, and he has some kind of like new blue indicator. And remember, he has the least amount of information about this world. The other heroes were all dropped into this world from some kind of background where this was a game, right? This reality was a game that they all knew pretty well. Whereas in his world, where he comes from, it's not a game; it's a book, if I remember correctly. And so he doesn't quite understand the mechanics of this world. So he's often at just as much of a loss as the audience is. Oh, no, that's not good. That's not good. Cool camera move there. Here's the Queen. The Queen has to be one of my favorite characters from season 1. She was pulling the strings the whole time. She was in the background. Super capable character. Really interesting. A lot of kind of mixed allegiances with her family, who are manipulative and terrible, but who she still loves. Her obligations to her country, dealing with these quarreling heroes. She's a really interesting character. I think they've handled her really well so far. I'm looking forward to seeing more of her in this season. Okay, so those bats were all over, huh? We found them too, yeah. So another element of season 1 is that the other 3 heroes are morons. Like other than the first episode where they kind of lay out their knowledge of the kingdom, everything that they've done after that has either been self-serving, poorly thought out, or just they're gullible, right? So they have these people from this world who they seem to just accept everything that they say at face value. So in this case, if someone makes an accusation against Rashia here, one of the other party members does, she's out of the party, gone. So that's one aspect of this kingdom and these other heroes that is just kind of a little difficult to believe that they're this gullible. That's interesting. So at the end of episode 25, they made the point about her that she had stolen or broken something. It wasn't necessarily a point that she wasn't strong enough. So that's interesting, especially by this point in the story. They've gone through 3 different waves. She definitely showed herself as pretty capable in the last wave attack. That's pretty interesting that he doesn't value her as being strong enough at all. But again, probably sets up her arc going forward with Naofumi and his troop. I love the idea. This could be a really cool character backstory in a world where there are many adventuring parties. In a D&D set world where there are many adventuring parties, it could be a cool premise that a young adventurer teams up originally with a slightly higher level party and underperforms, and they kick her out of the party. She switches groups, and that's the group that the D campaign is based around. And so as she advances and progresses, they begin to outperform or grow into their own, and can be used as kind of a way to tie in a rival adventuring group and use that as a mechanism to push this party forward as well as that character's advancement. That could be really fun. It's pretty good stakes. Pretty good stakes. Again, if you're gonna use this for D&D inspiration, some kind of coastal, maybe like a dragon turtle or something like that, or just some of the new dragons that came out in Fizzbands, a marauding dragon, and needing to call upon the heroes to stop that dragon before it reaches lands that they were just given for their noble adventuring. That's a pretty cool concept right there as well. Yeah, why is the wave countdown stopped? I'd be way more suspicious about that. I'd be way more suspicious than that. It's just way too convenient that you suddenly have a stop in the countdown, these bats and the Taurus turtle, and we know that they're somewhat connected. This guy's character design reminds me a lot of like a Jet Black. In general, one of my favorite parts of this show is the different looks of the characters. I was thinking that you have shows like Sword Art Online that were also kind of based heavily on characters being in the game. And they went with a much sleeker, more kind of tech focused design to a lot of their armor. It had a much edgier vibe and feel to it, even though it was in this fantasy setting. I really love kind of the subtle take on armor here. It feels like real usable armor. Obviously, not historically accurate armor or anything like that, but stylized in a way that is believable and creates these really cool aesthetics. I also think all of the characters kind of stand out in really interesting ways. The silhouettes of each character is really beautifully readable. It's hard to understand how from what we've seen in the anime, and granted, this was based on a light novel, so they probably answered this a little bit more in the light novel. But one criticism I have so far is it's hard to understand how she was an adventurer in the party, because they chose the best adventurers in season 1 to join these different parties. So how is it that she went from being someone strong enough to join the heroes in the first place to someone who considers herself a failure at all the things that she does? That's a little bit of a disconnect for me in this character so far. All right, so they're off. Happy, good times. Going on a little adventure here, a little map, catching some fish, fun little montage. You know, these are the days. These are the moments. Oh, what a goofball. She fell in the river. She really is a failure. We saw a lot of these montages in season 1. It's a cute little aspect of the show. And it definitely highlights kind of a part of the story that we often skip over in our D&D campaigns and whatnot, but can be pretty endearing. It certainly gives a chance for the characters to display their personality a little bit without needing too much in the way of exposition. One thing that they did in season 1 was they limited the amount of money that Naofumi had access to, right? So while the other heroes were getting paid large sums of money, he was not getting nearly as much, again, because he was kind of ostracized for this crime that he didn't commit. This forced him to need to begin crafting jewelry, medicines, that sort of thing. And it's an interesting way that a DM could think about introducing skills, and if you wanted to play more into the proficiencies of thing, bringing the overall access the players have to money, and trying to force them into, if they want to stay in an inn, perhaps they have to sell some goods first and use those skills along the way a little bit more. Could create some lead-ins to some pretty interesting adventures. Who's she talking to? Victoria? Yeah, Victoria. So Victoria is like the queen of all of these kind of bird creatures that Philo is a member of, kind of that, right? So she's the queen over all the world, and Philo is kind of the princess, or at least a queen candidate. But that's interesting. We didn't know that they communicate through these kind of cowlicks that they have. Yeah, and she was really adamant that Vittoria was really adamant that the 4 heroes begin working together, which is a little bit, not that they wouldn't, right? The expectation is that these 4 heroes would work together, but we found out that her problem was that they weren't working together while the waves were occurring all across the world. This raises the question of, like, how then are they supposed to all be in the same place at the same time, right? If waves are kind of happening in these different nations, how is it that the heroes are supposed to be in all 4, all locations at the same time fighting the waves, which makes it seem as if maybe the heroes aren't necessarily fighting the waves in the correct way, right? They're fighting against the symptoms, and maybe what we're going to learn is that they have to, if they want to end these waves, go fight the actual cause so that they can fight together by being in kind of one central location, which also makes a lot of sense if the concept of this world that they're in is that it is, from their worlds, just a game. That's interesting rumor that 3 of the 4 of them died. I mean, did the other 3 heroes really go fight it? Was that the thing earlier that they were saying, oh, we have something else to do, and the 3 of them decided to go fight the turtle? That doesn't really add up. Okay, so we got this guy in the black hood who seemed to be saying exactly the right thing at the right time to get these guys on edge. That's an interesting shot. I wonder who that is. I bet we'll be seeing more of him soon. She's got to get over the whole Itsuki-sama thing real fast. Like, we'll give her this one episode, but she's got to start making that turn real fast or she's going to be pretty unbearable. Uh-oh. What do we got? Oh, the bats are back? And they've got, like, turtle shells? Oh, geez. Got some kind of, like, baboon, ape animal. Again, with turtle shells on the back. All right, so maybe these are visual cues, right? All these creatures got these tortoise shells on their back. All right, let's see how they do it. Oh, well, the shield definitely seems to be upgraded. New attack from Philo. Yeah, look at that shield. That is not the simple gray shield from season 1. Drive a tornado. Oh, that didn't seem to do much, but okay. Alright, so he uses his hate reaction to, like, make them follow him. We saw that quite a bit in season 1. It's cool. I mean, it's very reminiscent of the mechanics for, like, your tank, right? Where you want to get the enemy to be attacking you rather than your other party members. So that's kind of how it manifests here, but definitely something I think you could build towards in D&D if you're building up a character around being inspired by Naofumi. Oh, wow. He busted out the Wrath Shield real fast. This is interesting. We haven't, much of the first season, we saw him very hesitant to use this dark power. And while the numbers were pretty overwhelming, I don't suspect that they would be any more overwhelming than the numbers we've seen in any of the waves before. So I think that kind of implies that he's feeling a lot better about using the Wrath Shield, if I'm getting that right. That's interesting because it was definitely one of the things he was trying to avoid using in the first season. I wonder what's made that shift in his mind. Oh, who is this? Is that the turtle? Is that the tortoise? All right, here are credits. The credits are always pretty tame for this show. I mean, the animation is beautiful, but they're always pretty straightforward. They don't really do much stylistically, which is a bit of a disappointment. There's an interesting baddie we haven't seen before. And clearly this is our spirit tortoise. Definitely seems like they've moved away from this idea that Naofumi can't attack in any way. He seems to definitely be able to go on the offensive now. Yeah, looks like the other 3 heroes are going to continue to be useless, but definitely seeing some new secondary characters that seem promising. And I think how much Rashia was featured in this episode speaks to the fact that we're probably going to see quite a bit of her this season. I would say, all in all, it was an interesting episode. I think the most interesting part of it was being able to make the connections to season 1. It's interesting to see what they felt needed to be top of mind, because honestly, it's hard to believe that a spirit tortoise would be top of mind. Like, I kind of understand what the other heroes are saying, which is kind of where we left off. There are clearly other worlds that are trying to destroy this world through the waves, and to just kind of walk away from that thread to instead favor this spirit tortoise thread or storyline seems seems a little bit like we're probably going to spend 6 episodes worrying about this. He's going to defeat it. And then, oh yeah, right, let's get back to the main story at hand. Now, if this were a show that only had 6 months between its break, fine, sure, I don't mind going on a sub storyline. But considering it's been 3 years, I thought or felt we would either get back into the action much quicker or set up some really compelling, twisted plots very similar to what we saw in the beginning of season 1, and they really grabbed our attention and pulled us in really quickly. And I think maybe this feels like the creators of this anime felt like they had more rope to go off of than they did, certainly from my attention. I'll be super interested to see where we go from here. I want to know who this woman is. I want to see how Rashia develops. And I generally want an answer to what's happening with the waves and what's the bigger question there. I just hope we don't have to spend half a season on this storyline or a whole season on this storyline when I think there's something much more compelling happening behind the scenes. So all in all, I would probably give this 3 out of 5 stars, right? We saw some really beautiful animation, love the character designs, happy to see them again, love that we got to see the slave trader for a moment, love that we got to see the queen, but all in all, I'm not sure they laid any groundwork that makes this so compelling that I am 100% on board with the direction with which it's currently going. But we'll wait and see. We'll give it a shot, and we're going to hopefully do another one of these reactions real soon. So please make sure to like and subscribe if you would like to see more of these reactions and more take on anime and how it can be connected to D&D. And as always, adventurer, safe journeys.